Hey everyone, it's Haley, and today is Bookmas Day 19, so I thought it would be really fun to tier rank every single book that I read this past year. So yesterday for Bookmas Day 18, I showed you all of the books that I ended up reading in 2020, and I went over some kind of like stats and stuff, but I will have that link down below just in case you missed it, as well as the entire Bookmas playlist so you guys can get caught up if you have fallen behind. Now, I decided to do a tier ranking video this year because those kind of became very popular this year. There is like this website that came out called Tier Maker, and all of a sudden everyone was tier ranking absolutely everything, and I think it's a really fun trend. I did a couple videos like that, and I thought it would be super fun to do it for all of the books that I ended up reading this year. I'm also going to be doing it for all the books that I read this year, but just based on their covers, so that will be coming at a later Bookmas date, which I'm also super excited for. So I read 100 books this past year, but I actually read 99 like new books because I actually ended up reading The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta twice, so there's only 99 titles here, but that's still a lot to get through. This time for my tier ranking, I decided to divide it into 5 categories. I think before I've done like 6 or 7, but this just kind of seemed a little bit easier. So the top category is the best of the best. Those are like the greatest, my favorites of the year. Then the second category is not the greatest, but still pretty great. So they didn't quite make that top category, but I did still really enjoy them. Then the middle category is middle of the road. So I feel like these are kind of like the forgettable books that didn't really stand out as being good or bad. They were solid books that I read. Then after that is okay, but bordering on bad. So these books kind of edged more toward the, I didn't really like that sort of category. They were just all right. And then of course the final category, that's just yikes, because these are books that I just really did not like. They had few redeeming qualities in my personal opinion, and they find themselves there. So super excited to get into this. I have done kind of videos that pair with each of these categories specifically, but I think it's fun to have like all of the books here because there's a lot of books that have kind of fallen into the middle and I haven't gotten the chance to talk about a lot, and I always struggle to make decisions, so these tier ranking videos are always very interesting for me. So let's just get into it. So before we really get into it, I just wanted to mention there's 97 books total actually, because 2 of the books I read this year were nonfiction and I don't like to rate those, so it wouldn't make sense to include them in a ranking video either. And the other thing is that I read The Black Flamingo twice, so that takes 3 books off and is why it's 97, not 100. Okay, so diving in, I have all of the books on here and they are just in random order. So the first book that I have is Tiny Pretty Things by Danielle, Clayton, and Sona, Chairipotra. So this was a surprise with how much I enjoyed this one. It is such a fun ballet set story. I mean, it's fun in an interesting way because it's a really high stakes situation. I became totally invested in all of the characters, even the side characters. Everyone was so well developed, and I cannot wait to watch the adaptation that is going to be out soon. I'm not exactly sure when it's coming out, but I thought it was next year, but it's this year actually, which is a nice surprise. So this one I would say definitely goes in not the greatest, but still pretty great because I did really like it. However, like I had a couple of things with it. I didn't absolutely fall in love with it. I just had a really great time reading it. Like I was just edge of my seat the entire time. Next up is The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. So this is a graphic novel adaptation that I ended up reading because I actually have already read the actual novel, so it's a reread for me. But the graphic novel I didn't quite like as much as I enjoyed the original story, so I would say that this one goes in middle of the road, and I will also put volume 2 in there as well. But it's not that like I hated them or anything. It's just I didn't really care for the illustration style, I guess. It's not exactly my favorite illustration style, and I preferred the actual novel, knowing how much I enjoyed that one because I did really like that one. But it's like different illustrators that contribute, and it's not a bad illustration style, it's just not my personal taste. Oh god. I just saw what's next. So next is a similar situation. It is another Neil Neil Gaiman graphic novel adaptation. However, I have never read the novel for this one, but it is Coraline, which I'm just gonna go ahead and put in yikes. This book scarred me for life. We know this. Gave me nightmares, like literal, actual nightmares. It just was absolutely horrifying. And you may think that means that it was successful. It did its job because it's supposed to be like a creepy story. But no, it was really just the illustrations that creeped me out. Like, oh my goodness, yeah, this deserves its own category because it's just, did not like it at all. Next up is A Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. So this one I actually later on in here have the graphic novel adaptation that came out recently, but I would say that this one belongs in not the greatest but still pretty great. Now my ranking for the graphic novel is going to be a little bit different. You will see once we get there, but I super enjoyed this story. It is about a boy who is making the decision whether to avenge his brother's death as he's going down the elevator. So it's told in verse, and it's just ghosts from his past walk on and help him like talk through this decision and if it is actually something that he should do. So it brings up a lot of interesting points. It's super well written, very immersive, and I did really, really enjoy it. Next is Songs of Innocence and of Experience by William Blake. I have read a lot of William Blake for classes. Like, honestly, I feel like every single year, every single semester really, I had at least 2 classes where we were reading some William Blake poetry, but I do really enjoy William Blake, so I'm not mad about that. So I decided to read the whole compilation because I had wanted to do that one day, and I finally did it this year. But I would say that this one goes in not the greatest, but still pretty great because like I did enjoy it. Obviously there's different poems, so I have different mixed feelings on those things, but I don't know, I think he's really talented and I always enjoyed studying his work in school. Next is Dreamland Burning by Jennifer Latham. So I don't know if it's just like the way that these are ordered, but I feel like the next few, they're all gonna be pretty highly ranked. So I don't know. It just seems, because even Dreamland Burning, I am going to put in not the greatest, but still pretty great. Like, I found that book really made me think. It deals with racism and it's dual timeline historical fiction. So partially in present day, partially in the 1920s. And there are some racist things that are happening. It's when Jim Crow is happening. So, and it's also set in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So like it's set in a place where these hate groups are on the rise. So really a difficult read, but I loved the parallelism between the 2 time periods and how it showed that it's not just an issue of the past. I think it was super well done. And of course, next we have Wolf by Ryan Grodin, which I will just go ahead and put in best of the best. So this was my second favorite book of the year. Loved it. It is an alternate history, historical fiction, kind of like, I don't know if you would call it a historical fiction, I guess. Well, because yeah, it is set in the 1950s, but it's just an alternate version of history where the Axis powers won the war and there's a character who's trying to win a motorcycle race and kill Hitler. So very interesting concept, but so well executed. Like, I've talked about this book so much and how much I loved it. And I guess I'll just go ahead and put Blood for Blood up there, as well as I would say Iron to Iron. I'll put Iron to Iron there as well. Okay, so we'll have all 3 of those in the best of the best category. Iron to Iron is a prequel novella that was also super well done. So just all 3 of those books made for such an interesting, fascinating, great story. It hit so many emotional levels. I was on the edge of my seat, just so great. Now, every year, at least once, I reread Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll, and this year was no exception. So these are gonna go in the best of the best, of course, because they're just the best of the best. There's a reason why I own, I think it's 98 copies now. I don't know, I keep losing count, but there's a reason why I own so many copies of these books because I just love them so much. Usually when I do these, it's not like, right now, it's like a pyramid with most of the good books, but usually it's most like bad or middle of the road, but I don't really have anything in the middle of the road right now. So next is The King of Crows by Libba Bray. So this one, once again, is gonna go in the best of the best. We had a great reading year this year, apparently, but this is the finale to the Diviner series and I loved it. Partially why I loved it is just nostalgia and just such an intense love for these characters, and getting to see their stories finally wrap up after so long was lovely. So definitely that's a best of the best one. Next is Shiny Broken Pieces by Danielle, Clayton, and Sona Chairipotra. So this is a sequel to Tiny Pretty Things, but I didn't enjoy this one quite as much as I enjoyed Tiny Pretty Things. So I'm going to bring this one over to the middle of the road. I would say like it's just, I don't know, there were certain issues that I had with the sequel. Maybe my expectations were too high going into it, but I was just the littlest bit let down. So I would say it's kind of on the higher end of middle of the road. Like it's close to like not the greatest, but still pretty great. It's kind of like, I guess if there was an in-between category there, that's where that one would fall. Next is the 12 Days of Dash and Lily by Rachel Cohn and David Levithan. So this one I wasn't a huge fan of. I'm gonna put it in okay, but bordering on bad, because I didn't hate it. It's just like, I don't know, I didn't enjoy it nearly as much as Dash and Lily's Book of Dares, which I loved. So I think this is kind of like a similar situation where I went into the first book with no expectations, or not really exactly like expecting to enjoy it as much as I ended up enjoying it. So then when I went into the second book, I had expectations because I had liked the first book and was a little bit let down. Odd and True by Kat Winters is the next book, and this one is definitely going to go in yikes, because I actually DNF'd this one and I'm really sad about it, because it seems to be like very loved by other people, and I think it did some great things. Like it had great disability rep, I really enjoyed that, but it was supposed to be like a monster hunting story and I just never really got that. Next is Iron Cast by Destiny Soria. So this one I would say I'm torn between middle of the road and okay, but bordering on bad for this one. I think middle of the road. It wasn't a bad book by any means. It's just, it never really reached its full potential. This is a 1920s, like sort of, I think it's technically 1919 story, and it deals with magic, this magic where you have like song and that's magic. I never really fully understood the magic system. Next is Under a Painted Sky by Stacey Lee. So this one I'm going to put not the greatest, but still pretty great. I kind of feel like this one would also benefit from another category for middle of the road, but it would be like one step higher than Shiny Broken Pieces. Like this is where I struggle, because I'm like, I don't feel the same about all of these books. It's like ratings, like not every 5-star book I feel the same about, or not every 4-star book or 3-star. Like I find ratings and rankings so difficult for me, honestly, especially because I change my opinion all the time. So it's not easy, but we're just gonna settle with it there. But that is a Western historical fiction, and you follow a fugitive from slavery and a Chinese American girl who is fleeing after she's being chased and hunted. I mean, not really hunted, but basically she's wanted because she killed someone out of self-defense, and obviously no one's understanding that because people suck. Next is Princess Ever After by Katie O'Neill. Katie O'Neill writes the cutest like graphic novels. Her illustration style is so adorable. So this one I'm going to put in not the greatest, but still pretty great. I really loved that one. I thought it was super cute. It's just, it's like so short. So that kind of like, I felt like it could have been a little bit longer. Next is Allegedly by Tiffany D. Jackson. This is going to go, once again, in not the greatest, but still pretty great. This was such a great thriller, like a really great one to start off with this author with, so super enjoyed that one. Alex Approximately by Jen Bennett is next up, which is also going to go in not the greatest, but still pretty great. Like, I didn't realize how like great of a reading year I had, and maybe I just haven't gotten to the books that I didn't really like, but wow. It was a solid year, especially compared to others. I feel like my list would not look like this. But yeah, Alex Approximately is one of the 3 Jen Bennett books that I read this year, and I really liked it. Next is The Librarian of Auschwitz by Antonio Iturb, translated by Lilith Thwaites. This is a book that I really wanted to like more, but this one is going to have to go in okay, bordering on bad. So this isn't really judging the content of the story. It's just like the method of storytelling. I don't know if it's because it's a translation. I just felt like there was way too much thrown in there, and it kind of diluted the story. And I think having read so many World War II historical fictions, I was just kind of let down by it. Next is The Witch Boy by Molly Ostertag. So this one I enjoyed a lot, but I would say it's kind of like middle of the road. I had a good time with it. I thought it had a lot of very interesting commentary, but I didn't like fall in love with the story. But I did think like it was a solid one, and I will continue with the rest of the series. Next is Let's Talk About Love by Claire Kahn. So this is kind of another one where I feel like I need a middle category here between not the greatest, but still pretty great, and middle of the road, because I feel like it's definitely on the higher end of middle of the road, but oh gosh, it's like, I don't know, I feel like it's like a 3.5 out of 5-star read, and I think middle of the road is more of a 3-star. I should have added a middle category here, but I'm gonna put it in middle of the road. Oh, I really wish I had added a middle category there. Oh well. Anyways, yeah, I think it was like, it's definitely on the higher end there. I thought it was a really great story, super fluffy and cute, and I loved the asexuality representation, and I had a good time reading it. It's just like I didn't fall in love with it, I guess. Next is Spinning by Tilly Walden. So this one is definitely a middle of the road read, like nothing wrong with it, but it was, you know, I don't know. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I thought it was actually about ballet, but it's not. It's about figure skating. So found that out while I was reading it. And Anne of Green Gables, which is an adaptation, a graphic novel adaptation by Brenna Thumler. This one is also going to go in, no, I'll put that one in middle of the road, kind of on the higher end once again. I thought it was a really cute and well done adaptation of that book, which I really love. Next is Hidden Sea by Gregory Maguire. So this one I'm going to put in yikes, but I feel like it's kind of on the higher end of yikes, if you will, because like I didn't hate it. It was just really weird and strange and kind of kept me disconnected from the story. Love and Other Train Wrecks by Leah Conan is next, and I would say that this one once again falls in the middle of the road. It was a solid, cute, wintry romance, just doesn't really stand out to me. Next is Summer of Salt by Katrina Leno. So this one I'm going to put in not the greatest, but still pretty great. I had a really good time reading this one. I thought it had a lot of interesting commentary about rape culture, loved the atmosphericness of it, and I thought it was really well done. The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw, I'm gonna put in okay, but bordering on bad. It's kind of, well, I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm kind of getting these two categories mixed up a little bit, but also these two. So basically just this whole middle is really difficult for me right now. But I think that all I can think about when I think of The Wicked Deep are the issues that I had. I did like it. I had some positives for it, but there was just some things that kind of made me uncomfortable. So I'm going to put it in okay, but bordering on bad, but the higher end of that one, okay? It's almost in middle of the road. Starry Eyes by Jen Bennett. This one is going to go in middle of the road. I think my expectations for this one were just way too high. Like, I was just expecting to like it a lot more because so many of you guys had said that you loved it, and it just never really got there for me. I had a lot better luck with the other Jen Bennett books that I read. The Betrothed by Kiera Cass. That's going to go straight into yikes because that was highly anticipated, but highly disappointing. Like, I so wish that had gone better, but alas, it did not. The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker, I could have sworn that I read last year, but apparently like it's included towards my like this year reads, and I think I talked about it in my all the books I read in 2020 video, so we'll just count it here. But The Simple Wild, I would say, is another one that's the higher end of middle of the road, but I'm going to put it in middle of the road. This is where I was expecting this third category to be, is like the biggest, because I feel like that's generally how the year goes. Most of the books that I read are like some really great ones, but they're not exactly standouts rather. But yeah, I don't know, I think that's another one where my expectations were kind of a little bit too high. Serious Moonlight by Jen Bennett, I feel like is tied with Alex Approximately. I'm not sure which one is my favorite, so it belongs in that second category there, but really fun fall romance. It's actually set in summer, but it just feels like fall. Next is Check Please. So Check Please I read kind of like just on a whim, and I would say that it was another middle of the road graphic novel for me. I did really enjoy it, so it's kind of on the higher end of middle of the road, but I think maybe because like I don't, as a Canadian, this sounds weird to say, but I don't really care about hockey that much, so I think that's why. Next is One Day in December by Josie Silver. So this one gonna shoot right up to the best of the best. It's just, I don't know, I fell for this story and I can't explain why, but I really did. Sheets by Brenna Thumler. I'm realizing this video is going to be very long because I'm talking too much by it, but this one is going to go in okay, bordering on bad. There's just like, this book was really depressing. The character just faces so much and there's not many happy moments, but I did like the concept for it. Like the fact that it's ghosts, but they're covered in sheets and it's a laundromat story. That's so cute. Song Below Water by Bethany Seymour, I think would also benefit from a middle of the road, higher like in between category here, but since there isn't one, I am going to put it in this middle. Well, I'm so torn. I don't know where I want to put it. Ugh. I guess I will keep it there. I don't know. Okay, I'm just gonna put it at the higher end of middle of the road. I'm just gonna put all the ones that I think are the higher end there together. What was the other one? I mean, this one I think I said. I don't know, I can't even remember what I said. Okay, moving on. Next is The Bride Test. This is another one actually that is the higher end of middle of the road, where I don't have that other category, but it's just like, I don't know, I really enjoyed it as another installment in the Kiss Quotient series. I just didn't fall in love with it because I had a couple issues like disconnect with the characters, but I did think it was a really nice addition. House of Salt and Sorrows by Aaron A. Craig is going to go in the best of the best because I was so pleasantly surprised by that book and how much I enjoyed it. So many people had hyped it up, but I just didn't expect to like it that much. Next is The Right Swipe by Alicia Ray. So this one is going to be another middle of the road higher end of that book. So they all get muddled when you get to the middle, and I know I could just like start over and actually have a category that is in between those two, but that's gonna be a lot of work, so I'm sorry, but we're just gonna do it this way. I can't start over. That's gonna be way too much. But yeah, so The Right Swipe I had a lot of fun with. It just like didn't completely blow me away. Next is Almost American Girl by Robin Ha. So this is kind of a higher end of middle of the road once again, but also kind of like in the middle of that category. I like how I'm making this so complicated by like making different levels in each category. This is me not being able to make decisions here. Actually, I've been pretty solid with making decisions. No, I haven't. Anyways, this is an autobiographical graphic novel, and I thought it was really well done, so I did really like it. Next is Time of Our Lives by Emily Wibberley and Austin Siegeman Broca. So this is definitely a middle of the road read, but like it wasn't bad by any means. None of these books are bad in this category. It's just they kind of like are the ones that fall into the middle, if you will. But this one I kind of had some issues with, but they were pretty much resolved. Like I thought it commented on a lot of very interesting things. Next is Like a Love Story by Avdi Nazemian. So this will be, I feel like it kind of could be in the best of the best, but it's either best of the best or not the greatest, but still pretty great. I think I'm gonna put it in the best of the best actually, because I did like, it's definitely at the higher end of the not the greatest, so I feel like it just belongs there. Like I thought it was such a beautiful story about the LGBTQ plus community, and I really liked it. Next is Opposite of Always by Justin A. Reynolds. So this is definitely a not the greatest, but it's still pretty great. Like I had, basically what that means is it's not a 5-star read, but I did still really like it. So like 4.5 out of 5 stars. I'm trying to justify this because it's so hard for me to explain why I rate something as I do. Next is The Key to Happily Ever After by Tiff Marcello. So this one for sure is a middle of the road read, and not that I didn't like it, it's just I kind of expected something different. I expected more of an adult romance plotline to it, but most of it was kind of more like a chick lit, like more so about the relationship between these 3 sisters who own this wedding shop. So it was just a little bit disappointing in that way. Next is The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. So this one I'm gonna put in yikes, because like I feel like it could be okay but bordering on bad, but I think that yikes is where it belongs because I don't really have fond memories of it. I've kind of entirely forgotten about it. Next is All Your Twisted Secrets by Diana Urban, which for sure is a middle of the road, like not a bad book, but it's just, I guess I don't really always care for those thrillers, those YA thrillers that are kind of like One of Us is Lying. It's not generally my taste, so I don't know. Not bad, but just not great. Next is Maybe This Time by Casey West, which is another middle of the road read. This third category, as predicted, really big, but it's not my favorite Casey West romance that I've read. I thought it did some interesting things compared to her other ones, but just not my favorite. Next is Dear Haiti, Love Elaine by Micah Malit and Maritza Mulit. So this is for sure one that I wish I kind of had that middle category, but I'm going to go ahead and put it in not the greatest, but still pretty great. Like, I had a couple of issues while reading it, but I do still think it was a really solid story and a great debut. I feel like we're like only halfway through here because I've been talking way too much unintentionally, but Say You Still Love Me is next by K.A. Tucker. So this for sure is middle of the road. I had super high expectations for it. Like I liked Simple Wild. I feel like she just kind of falls in the middle for me. I don't love her books, but so many people do. I think this one I had higher expectations for because it's a second chance romance, but just something about it I wasn't able to fully connect to the characters. Next is the Tea Dragon Festival by Katie O'Neill. I also have somewhere down here, I will grab that one as well, the Tea Dragon Tapestry by Katie O'Neill. These two graphic novels definitely are the best of the best. They are so cute. I love Katie O'Neill's illustration style, and especially this Tea Dragon series is just the absolute cutest. Those dragons, they have my heart. They're so cute. And actually, same with Seance Tea Party by Romina Yee. I feel like I haven't really talked about this one all that much for Bookmas, but it's the best of the best for me because it did really impact me. Like, I was talking about growing up and the fear of that. It was well done. Next is Well Met by Jen De Luca. So I feel like this one is kind of a higher end of the middle of the road, but I'm just gonna put it in middle of the road. So this was an adult romance that I kind of had high expectations for because so many people were raving about it. And I did like it. It took a while to grow on me, but it did eventually, and I had a good time with it. Next is The Fountains of Silence by Rudy Sepeti. So this will go in the best of the best. That's one of those books where after I finish reading it, like I keep thinking about it. Even months later, I think about it and those characters just are in my heart forever. Next is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I feel like I kind of wish that I had that middle category for this one as well, but I'm gonna put it in not the greatest, but still pretty great. And I kind of feel like I should put it in middle of the road, but it's just Leigh Bardugo. Like, I love her writing, and I think this was such an interesting and different and inventive story for her, so I'm just gonna stick to my guns there and keep it there. Next is I Kissed Alice by Anna Birch. So this is one that I DNF'd, so it's going to go in yikes. It didn't mesh with me. I couldn't tell the difference between the two perspectives, so I wasn't able to finish it, unfortunately. Next is Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. This is another one I'm going to go and put that in the best of the best. That's volume 3 of that cute graphic novel series. It is a male-male romance, and they are so cute. I love them. Next is Bringing Down the Duke by Evie Dunmore, which I finally read, but this I'm going to put, I kind of wish I had the middle category again, but I will go ahead and put it in not the greatest, but still pretty great. I think, no, I'm gonna put it, oh God, okay, I'm gonna put it, where do I have those higher end of it? Sure, I'm gonna put it there in the higher end of middle of the road because like it really is that higher end of middle of the road. The Night Country by Melissa Albert, I feel like is another one that I need that category for, but let's just go with not the greatest, but still pretty great for that one. That's the Hazelwood sequel that I wasn't sure how I would feel about it, but I did actually really enjoy it. Next is Slay by Brittany Morris, another book that really surprised me with how much I liked it, so that's going to go in not the greatest, but still pretty great. Kind of the higher end of that one. That one is close to getting into the best of the best. American Royals by Catherine McGee is also going to go right there beside Slay in not the greatest, but it's still pretty great because that's exactly what it was. Like, I had a really good time following the drama in this series, and it was super addictive. The Toll by Neil Shusterman is going to go in middle of the road. Like, I didn't hate this conclusion to the series, but I also didn't love it. And it kind of like, it does fall in the middle of the road because I had a few issues with it that kept me from enjoying it more. Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert will go in that second category there as well because I did really, really like it. And it's not like, there were some things like it's an enemies to lovers and I didn't really understand the enemies part, which I think is why I kind of have a disconnect from it. And also my expectations were super high, but it was still like a great story. 10 Blind Dates by Ashley Elston is going to go there as well because that was such a cute Christmas story. Really fell in love with it. And Cinderella is Dead by Kaylin Bayron will also go in that category there. Look at us making decisions, but that was a really great feminist Cinderella retelling that I had a lot of fun with. And Bromance Book Club, ooh, Bromance Book Club is also going to go there. So the Bromance Book Club by Lisa K. Adams, the first of that series, definitely belongs in that category because I did have a couple of issues with actually like both books in the series, but I did think that it was really well done and a lot of fun. So Lovely War by Julie Berry, of course, is going to go in the best of the best. That was my all-time favorite book that I read this year, and it belongs there. That is its rightful place. Master of One by Jada Jones and Danny Bennett, I feel like I also am going to put in this kind of end area where it's like middle of the road but higher because it is like really close to being in that next category. It was a lot of fun for a fantasy kind of like assemble Indiana Jones sort of thing. reading. Mooncakes by Suzanne Walker and Wendy Zhu is middle of the road for me, but just like normal middle of the road. So it doesn't stand out to me. I had like, I forget what my critiques, if you will, exactly were for it. I think it was just like some missed opportunities. I don't exactly remember, but I thought it was really cute. Come Tumbling Down by Shauna McGuire, I'm going to put in the yikes category. Well, no, I'll put that in okay, but bordering on bad. It's not a bad book, but it doesn't really stand out to me. The series doesn't really stand out to me. There's something that keeps me reading it, but I also have a disconnect from it. Witchy by Ariel Slamet Rees. I think this one is also middle of the road, just normal middle of the road. I don't really remember how I feel about that one, to be honest, and that's because I read 11 books the day that I read that one, and that was the last one that I read, so it kind of makes sense. But I kind of remember having average feelings about it. Tweet Cute by Emma Lord. I feel like I also want that higher end here, so I'm gonna put it there, yeah, because the writing was really cute. Well, my expectations were definitely way too high going into it. It was very well written. Felix Ever After by Kissing Calendar has to go right next to Lovely War in the best of the best, because that was such a great book and definitely has made me want to read more from this author. When We Were Magic by Sarah Gailey, I'm going to put in okay, bordering on bad. I didn't like hate this book, it's just the character, like the main character specifically, was so hard to read. Like, she just was not enjoyable. Love Boat Taipei by Abigail Hing Wen is going to go in this second category here, because I had a lot of fun reading that one. It just doesn't quite get into the best of the best. An Embarrassment of Witches, this one is going to go in yikes. I just wasn't really a big fan of this one. It kind of annoyed me, to be honest. Like, the more I think about it, the more I'm kind of like, ugh, about that one. The Great Gatsby, this is the graphic novel adaptation. I'm gonna put in middle of the road, like, actually, I'll put it in okay, but bordering on bad, because I don't feel the same about Anne of Green Gables as I do about that one. Like, I enjoyed Anne of Green Gables a lot more. The Witches by Roald Dahl is also going to go in okay, but bordering on bad. I don't know. I think I was too old to read that one, but alas. My Calamity Jane by the Lady Janies is going to go in middle of the road, just regular. Like, it was average, kind of a little bit disappointing just because I've loved the other books in the series so much, but oh well, what can you do? We are almost at the end, so Among the Beasts and Briars by Ashley Poston. This one I think also kind of needs the higher end of middle of the road, kind of. I don't know. It's getting confusing. I know. I'm sorry, but I really liked this one. Like, it's kind of like a newer fairy tale, and it definitely read like a lighter fairy tale. Long Way Down graphic novel by Jason Reynolds, illustrated by Danica Novgorodov. This one I mentioned earlier. That's going to go in the best of the best. Well, just the regular one is in that second category. This one I think belongs in the first category, top tier, because honestly, those illustrations, like, it just added so much to my reading experience. I really loved it. And we will also put Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas in the best of the best, because it really, that book deserves all the hype that it gets and more. Next is The Honey Don't List by Christina Lauren, which I'm going to put in not the greatest but still pretty great. I think after having read Twice in a Blue Moon, which was their latest adult romance release, I was kind of skeptical about The Honey Don't List, so I was really pleasantly surprised with how much I enjoyed it. Witchlight, this one is going to go in, I think I'm gonna put that one in yikes, actually, because I remember with that one, was it that one or was it with Witchy? Oh, I don't remember. I think it was this one. I might be getting them mixed up, but one of them had it where there wasn't really like a completed storyline for that first book. You definitely needed the sequels, but that was the only one that was out. I think it's actually Witchy that I had that issue with. But this one, I can't really remember how I felt. So I honestly don't remember this one. That's honestly the problem with 24-hour readathons, or in that case 48. I forget all the books because you read so many at once, and especially when they're all so similar. I'm just gonna leave it there. But 25 Days Till Christmas by Poppy Alexander, I'm gonna put in okay but bordering on bad. This wasn't a bad book. Like, none of these are bad. It's all a matter of opinion, obviously. But this one I just had very different expectations for. It was kind of, once again, a little bit of a letdown. Like, I wanted more joy from it as a Christmas romance. Verona Comics by Jennifer Dugan. This one I will put in middle of the road. It was like a solid, good read. Nothing wrong with it. I do think that it kind of like, I don't know. It wasn't what I expected because it deals with mental health a lot more prevalently, but I never really fell in love with it. The Bone Houses by Emily Lloyd-Jones for sure is a middle of the road read, unfortunately, because I wanted to like that one a lot more, but just kind of something kept me from fully connecting to it. The Paper Girl of Paris by Jordan Taylor, I'm going to put an okay bordering on bad, but it's kind of on the higher end of that because I don't think it's bad, but I just think that I've read too much historical fiction for that one to be one that I would really enjoy. Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is going to go in the best of the best. I love Elizabeth Acevedo. She does such a great job with her books, and this one was no exception. Undercover Bromance by Lisa K. Adams. This one's going to go in middle of the road, not the higher end, just kind of middle of the road. I really enjoyed Bromance Book Club, but I just didn't like the characters or the storyline as much in the second installment. I felt like the issues that I had in the first one kind of became amplified in this one, like it kind of read like a textbook at some points. The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta, of course, is going to go right into the best of the best because it truly was such a great story. This is the one that I read twice, actually. It was just so fantastic. And also, Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco is going to go right there beside it because another great book. Beetle and the Hollow Bones by Eliza Lane, I think is, once again, kind of like one of those middle of the road reads. So I'm just going to put it there. It's kind of on the lower end, closer to okay, but bordering on bad, but we'll just leave it there. Beach Read by Emily Henry, I loved, so we will put that in best of the best again. And Punching the Air by E.B. Zoboy and Yusuf Salam, I'm going to put in not the greatest, but still pretty great, but it's definitely also on the higher end of that category. So that is the entire ranking of all 100, it's 97, but you get what I mean, books that I read this year. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm sorry if it got kind of confusing because I can't make decisions, but I do kind of feel like I should have added a category in between middle of the road and not the greatest, but oh well, what can you do? It's really not that big of a deal. We're just playing a game here. But I hope you guys liked this video. Don't forget to join me tomorrow for Bookmas Day. I don't even know what day it is. Tomorrow is Bookmas Day 20, so I'm going to be doing an end of the year Q&A. You guys sent me some questions on Instagram that are end of the year themed, like whether it's about reading or writing or about just my life in general, and I answered them for you guys. So you guys can check that out, and don't forget to click that subscribe button so you won't miss any of the videos that I will be putting out over the entire month of December. There will be a new video every single day, so don't forget to click that notification bell so you won't miss any of those. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow for Bookmas Day 20. Bye!